December 1944. The Battle of the Bulge. It was the coldest, most brutal month of World War II. Deep in the frozen forests of Europe, an American military platoon found itself completely surrounded by enemy forces. Their supply of modern antibiotics was entirely depleted, and even minor wounds were beginning to rot and fester. Death was staring them in the face. But then, an old naturopathic doctor attached to the unit utilized an ancient, forgotten natural remedy that managed to get dying soldiers back on their feet and ready to fight within just 24 hours. This was not magic. These were the powerful, overlooked natural survival secrets that the military relied on to keep their men as tough as iron. In today's video, we are going to expose 20 of these incredible military survival remedies. Make sure you do not miss secret number 14 and secret number 1, because secret number 14 reveals how they stopped a rushing torrent of blood from a gunshot wound in mere seconds, leaving modern scientists completely stunned. Welcome back to Forgotten American Health and Beauty. This is the exclusive space where we dig deep into the shadows of history to recover the rare, potent, and all-natural remedies of old America, the very secrets that kept our ancestors living long, healthy, and vibrant lives. If you want to step away from chemical-laden modern medicines and use the healing power of nature to make your body resilient and timelessly strong, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications. Now, let us turn back the clock and discover the 20 rare military secrets that outperformed antibiotics on the battlefield. Secret number 20, the garlic trench poultice. During the grim days of the First World War, modern antibiotics did not exist. Soldiers trapped in damp, muddy trenches suffered from minor cuts that rapidly became breeding grounds for deadly bacteria. This frequently led to a horrific condition known as gangrene, where the body's tissue would literally die and rot, leaving military doctors with no choice but amputation. To combat this nightmare, American and British Army surgeons relied on a cheap, incredibly powerful field remedy, the raw garlic poultice. Doctors would thoroughly crush fresh garlic cloves to extract their juices, wrap the crushed pulp in sterile surgical cloth, and bind it directly over deep, infected wounds. Modern science has since proven that raw garlic contains a massive dose of allicin, an exceptionally potent natural antimicrobial compound that destroys resilient bacteria on contact. By utilizing this traditional remedy in the heart of combat, military doctors successfully saved the limbs and lives of thousands of soldiers who otherwise would have succumbed to infection. Secret number 19, the charcoal poison antidote. In active combat zones, access to clean drinking water was a luxury, and survival often came down to a fragile line between life and death. Enemies would frequently contaminate local water wells, or soldiers would be forced to drink stagnant, highly polluted water from muddy swamps and wilderness streams to avoid dehydration. To prevent fatal stomach infections, dysentery, or deliberate poisoning, the United States military issued a fine powder of activated charcoal as a mandatory component of every soldier's survival kit. Whenever a soldier began to experience severe abdominal cramps, nausea, or signs of ingesting toxic material, they were instructed to immediately mix this black powder into a cup of water and drink it. Activated charcoal possesses a unique, highly porous molecular structure that acts like a powerful magnet inside the digestive tract. It binds to toxins, heavy metals, and harmful bacteria, trapping them completely so they cannot be absorbed into the bloodstream. This simple remedy acted as an emergency internal shield, saving countless soldiers from biological hazards in the wild. Secret number 18, the pine resin salve. When American soldiers spent months establishing camps deep within dense, untamed forests, they frequently faced severe lacerations from heavy equipment and sharp branches. In situations where the medical tent ran out of surgical needles and silk thread to stitch open wounds, Army guides looked to the surrounding wilderness for a solution. They collected the thick, sticky resin dripping from native pine trees, heated it gently, and blended it with animal fat or butter to create a smooth, durable salve. This rustic mixture served a dual purpose on the battlefield. First, it functioned as a heavy-duty, waterproof natural glue that held the edges of a deep cut tightly together, mimicking modern liquid stitches. Second, pine resin is naturally packed with highly acidic, antimicrobial compounds that create a hostile environment for fungus and bacteria. By sealing the wound completely from external dirt and air, this remedy kept a soldier's flesh perfectly preserved and free from infection until they could safely reach a proper military hospital. Secret number 17, the raw honey shield. The explosive nature of 20th-century warfare exposed soldiers to devastating artillery blasts, flash fires, and chemical burns that scorched their skin. When field hospitals completely exhausted their supplies of specialized burn ointments and soothing creams, military doctors turned to one of the oldest healing substances known to humanity: raw, unpasteurized honey. For soldiers suffering from agonizing, heavily charred skin, medics would apply a thick, generous layer of pure honey directly onto the open burns. This created a dense, airtight barrier that immediately blocked oxygen from hitting the exposed nerve endings, providing instant relief from the blinding pain. Beyond soothing the nerves, raw honey naturally produces low levels of hydrogen peroxide when it comes into contact with wound fluids, keeping the burned flesh entirely sterile. Furthermore, its rich nutrient profile stimulated rapid cellular regeneration, allowing new layers of skin to rebuild so quickly that soldiers often healed without developing severe, debilitating scar tissue or permanent physical deformities. Secret number 16, the willow bark fever breaker. Operating in freezing rain, damp trenches, and sub-zero winter environments regularly caused soldiers to develop severe respiratory infections, pneumonia, and bone-chilling fevers that left their entire bodies completely paralyzed with pain. Long before the widespread commercial mass production of modern aspirin or synthetic fever reducers, the military relied on the bark of the native willow tree to break these life-threatening fevers. Medics would shave the inner bark of the willow tree and boil it in copper pots to create an intensely bitter, concentrated tea for the sick men to drink. Willow bark is nature's original source of salicin, organic chemical compound that functions exactly like modern acetylsalicylic acid. Once ingested, this potent brew immediately triggered heavy sweating, which rapidly brought down dangerously high body temperatures. At the same time, it blocked pain signals throughout the central nervous system, relieving the deep, agonizing joint and muscle aches associated with war illnesses and allowing incapacitated soldiers to regain their strength and return to duty. Secret number 15, apple cider vinegar. During World War II, soldiers were forced to stand in the damp, muddy water of trenches for months at a time without changing their socks or boots. This constant exposure to moisture caused a horrific condition known as trench foot, where the skin and flesh of the feet would literally begin to rot and peel away. If left untreated, the severe fungal and bacterial infections could lead to permanent nerve damage or even require amputation. To save the soldiers' feet, military doctors relied heavily on pure apple cider vinegar. This simple, natural wash destroyed the deepest layers of infection, reduced swelling, and completely restored the skin, allowing soldiers to keep their feet and stay on the march. Secret number 14, cayenne pepper. On the battlefield, a deep wound from a bullet or a bayonet presented an immediate, life-threatening crisis, exsanguination, or bleeding to death within a matter of minutes. When a soldier was hemorrhaging heavily and standard field dressings were failing to control the flow, military guides turned to a shocking but incredibly effective emergency measure: fine cayenne pepper powder. Medics would pour the dry red powder directly into the wide-open, bleeding wound. While it sounds like it would cause unbearable pain, the natural compounds in the pepper actually interacted rapidly with the local nervous system to dull the sharpest pain, while simultaneously causing the severed blood vessels and arteries to contract violently. Within 10 to 12 seconds of application, the cayenne pepper would completely halt the rushing torrent of blood, forming a solid, protective clot. This crucial intervention stabilized the wounded soldier and bought the medics precious hours to safely transport them to a proper surgical field hospital. Secret number 13, wild-thyme vapor. Freezing battlefield conditions and constant exposure to wet, sub-zero air frequently caused soldiers to develop severe respiratory distress, including acute bronchitis, whooping cough, and advanced pneumonia. In isolated military outposts, modern nebulizers, inhalers, and oxygen tanks were completely unavailable, leaving soldiers gasping for air as their lungs filled with thick, suffocating fluid. To clear their airways, military cooks and medics would boil large quantities of wild thyme in cauldrons of water. They would then place the struggling soldier over the pot, covering his head with a heavy wool blanket to force him to inhale the concentrated steam. Wild thyme contains high amounts of thymol, a powerful natural volatile oil with intense antispasmodic and antibacterial properties. As the warm vapor traveled deep into the bronchial tubes, it immediately relaxed the throat muscles, thinned out the hardened mucus, and allowed the soldier to cough up the congestion, completely clearing his lungs and restoring normal respiration within minutes. Secret number 12, clove oil drops. During long marches or while trapped behind enemy lines, a sudden, severe toothache or deep gum infection could completely incapacitate a soldier, rendering them unable to focus, sleep, or even hold a rifle. With no military dentists or heavy painkillers available in the field, doctors relied on a tiny, essential remedy carried in their standard medical pouches, pure clove oil. Medics would soak a small piece of sterile cotton wool in a few drops of the oil and pack it tightly directly into the cavity of the decaying tooth or against the swollen gum line. Clove oil is naturally packed with eugenol, a chemical compound that acts as a profound local anesthetic and antiseptic. Within moments of contact, the oil would penetrate deep into the tooth's nerve endings, completely numbing the entire jaw and erasing the blinding pain. This allowed the soldier to remain functional and clear-headed through the mission without the need for systemic drugs. Secret number 11, the saltwater flush. Constant exposure to dust, dry gunpowder smoke, and chemical fumes frequently caused soldiers to suffer from violent throat infections and severe tonsillitis. The inflammation would become so intense that men could barely swallow their rations or even their own saliva, leaving them weak and dehydrated. To save precious and limited supplies of manufactured antibiotic pills for more critical injuries, Army doctors turned to a foundational, highly effective remedy, the hot saltwater flush. Soldiers were ordered to aggressively gargle a highly concentrated solution of warm water and coarse salt multiple times a day. The heavy concentration of salt created a powerful osmotic effect, drawing out fluid from the inflamed tissues to rapidly reduce swelling. More importantly, it literally dehydrated and crushed the cellular walls of the bacteria living in the throat, killing them instantly. This simple field routine routinely cleared up agonizing throat infections within 48 hours without a single modern drug. Secret number 10, the turmeric military paste. The physical demands of moving heavy artillery, weapons, and massive rucksacks over miles of rough terrain placed immense stress on the bodies of soldiers, leading to severe joint dislocations, torn ligaments, and deep muscle strains. Furthermore, the massive shock waves from nearby mortar explosions caused internal inflammation throughout the body's tissues, leaving soldiers stiff, swollen, and unable to move without agonizing pain. When manufactured anti-inflammatory drugs and commercial pain-relieving gels were completely unavailable, military naturopathic doctors mixed pure turmeric powder with hot mustard oil to create a dense, medicated paste. This warm mixture was applied thickly over the injured joint or pulled muscle and wrapped tightly with heavy cotton bandages. The active compound in turmeric, curcumin, absorbed directly through the skin pores into the bloodstream, where it blocked inflammatory pathways and drastically boosted localized circulation. This treatment pulled the deep fluid accumulation out of the joints overnight, allowing injured soldiers to recover their full mobility and return to active combat within days. Secret number 9, witch hazel bruise wash. Navigating through dense jungles, sharp trenches, and jagged barbed wire fields left soldiers with severe physical trauma, resulting in deep, painful bruises and internal hematomas where blood pooled beneath the skin. If these large areas of trapped blood were left untreated, they ran a high risk of becoming infected or causing tissue necrosis. The standard American military treatment for this type of blunt force trauma was a concentrated wash distilled from the bark and leaves of the native witch hazel shrub. Every field medic kept a bottle of this clear fluid ready for immediate use. When a soldier suffered a severe impact injury, a cloth soaked in witch hazel was pressed firmly against the skin. Witch hazel is exceptionally rich in natural tannins, which are powerful astringents. These compounds cause the tiny, damaged blood vessels beneath the skin to constrict immediately, stopping the internal bleeding and forcing the trapped, pooled blood to redistribute back into the circulatory system. This caused the painful black and blue discoloration to fade rapidly while removing the deep, throbbing ache from the muscle. Secret number 8, the ginger root thermoregulation. In frozen, sub-zero winter campaigns, such as the brutal winter of the Ardennes, soldiers faced a silent enemy far more lethal than artillery: hypothermia. When the human body's core temperature drops drastically, blood flow retreats from the extremities to protect the internal organs, leaving the hands and feet to freeze, which leads to frostbite and eventual tissue death. To combat this environmental hazard and stimulate internal body heat, soldiers were issued pieces of raw ginger root to keep in their pockets and chew on continuously. Ginger contains active pungent compounds called gingerols, which dramatically accelerate the body's metabolic rate upon ingestion. This chemical reaction dilates the peripheral blood vessels, forcing warm, freshly oxygenated blood to rush out to the very tips of the frozen fingers and toes. This simple tactical hack kept the soldiers' nervous systems active and prevented their limbs from freezing. Additionally, if soldiers consumed contaminated wilderness rations, the ginger root instantly calmed the stomach lining, neutralizing excess acid and stopping severe nausea or vomiting on the spot. Secret number 7, baking soda emergency paste. Field operations constantly exposed soldiers to the hazardous elements of nature, including venomous insects, toxic spiders, scorpions, and occasionally, mild chemical irritants deployed on the battlefield. The bites and stings from these threats injected highly acidic toxins into the skin, causing violent allergic reactions, massive blistering, and intense, burning pain that destroyed a soldier's ability to focus. The military's fastest and most reliable countermeasure for these skin crises was basic sodium bicarbonate, commonly known as baking soda. Medics would quickly mix the white powder with a few drops of water to form a thick, alkaline paste and apply it directly onto the affected area. Because insect venoms and chemical irritants are heavily acidic, the strongly alkaline baking soda worked instantly to neutralize the acid at a molecular level. Within seconds of application, the intense burning, itching, and swelling were completely subdued, halting the spread of the toxin into the surrounding tissues and allowing the skin to heal cleanly. Secret number 6, the plantain leaf venom extract. If a soldier became isolated from his unit in a remote jungle or a distant Pacific island and suffered a bite from a venomous snake or a poisonous centipede, his survival depended entirely on a very common wilderness weed known as the broadleaf plantain. This resilient plant grows abundantly in fields and forest floors across North America and tropical regions, and military survival training made its identification a mandatory skill for every trooper. The emergency field application required the soldier to harvest several fresh leaves and chew them thoroughly to break the plant cell walls, turning it into a moist, green pulp. This pulp was then packed directly over the open puncture wounds and bound tightly with a piece of cloth. Broadleaf plantain leaves possess a powerful natural drawing action that works via capillary pressure to pull venoms, toxins, and localized poisons out through the skin's pores. By acting as a natural antitoxin poultice, the leaf safely trapped the venom locally, preventing it from entering the deep bloodstream and traveling to the heart and brain, keeping the soldier alive until proper medical evacuation arrived. Secret number 5, the vinegar fever compress. High-grade fevers resulting from typhoid, malaria, and trench fever were incredibly destructive forces on the battlefield, often sidelining more troops than physical combat injuries. When a soldier's body temperature skyrocketed to a dangerous 104°/Celsius/mathrm F or higher, the brain faced immediate risk of permanent neurological damage, seizures, or fatal heat stroke. In field conditions where ice packs and modern fever-reducing pharmaceuticals were entirely unavailable, military doctors used a classic, highly effective method, the vinegar compress. Medics would mix equal parts of standard white vinegar or apple cider vinegar with ambient water, soak long strips of cotton cloth in the liquid, and apply them directly to the soldier's forehead, abdomen, and the soles of his feet. Vinegar evaporates at a much faster rate than plain water, allowing it to rapidly draw heat away from the body's surface. These compresses were refreshed every 2 minutes, and within 15 to 20 minutes, this rapid cooling process safely brought the soldier's core temperature down to a manageable level, protecting his vital organs and brain functionality. Secret number 4, the aloe vera battlefield shield. The massive blast radius of artillery shells and the deployment of volatile fuels during 20th century combat frequently subjected soldiers to horrific flash burns and chemical flesh injuries. Burned skin is stripped of its natural defenses, making it an incredibly easy target for deadly bacterial infections that could easily result in sepsis. To provide immediate pain relief and create an unbreakable barrier against infection, military field hospitals deliberately cultivated large plots of aloe vera plants right outside their tents. Medics would slice open the thick, mature green leaves and apply the cool, dense, gelatinous inner pulp directly over the raw, charred skin. This gel instantly solidified into an airtight, flexible protective seal that isolated the open wound from airborne pathogens and dirt. Aloe vera is rich in asamannan, a complex carbohydrate that accelerates tissue repair by stimulating macrophage activity. This natural shield completely stopped the agonizing burning sensation while forcing the skin cells to regenerate so quickly that soldiers healed without forming thick, restrictive scar tissue that would otherwise limit their physical movement. Secret number 3, cold shock neuroresuscitation. The psychological and physical trauma of nearby shell impacts, massive blood loss, or extreme combat stress could plunge a soldier into a profound state of medical shock. In this condition, the central nervous system falters, blood pressure drops dangerously low, the heart rate weakens, and the soldier slips into a cold, unresponsive state of semi-consciousness that can quickly lead to cardiac arrest. If the medical tent ran out of chemical-smelling salts or ammonia inhalants, doctors used an ancient, primitive, and highly effective physiological trigger known as cold shock resuscitation. Medics would fill a bucket with freezing river water and forcefully splash it directly onto the soldier's face, neck, and upper chest. This sudden, extreme temperature drop instantly triggered the mammalian dive reflex and activated the sympathetic nervous system. It caused an immediate spike in adrenaline, forcing the peripheral blood vessels to constrict and violently driving oxygen-rich blood back into the heart and brain. The shocked soldier would take an immediate, deep gasp of air, instantly regaining full consciousness as his vital signs stabilized. Secret number 2, the licorice dehydration hack. When military units were ordered to execute long-distance tactical marches across arid deserts or rugged mountain ranges, water was an incredibly scarce resource that had to be strictly rationed. The intense heat and relentless physical exertion quickly caused the soldiers' throats to constrict and dry out, inducing a state of panic and exhaustion brought on by extreme thirst. To maximize the efficiency of their water supplies and keep troops moving forward without succumbing to dehydration, military scouts utilized a native wilderness trick, raw licorice root. Soldiers were given small pieces of the fibrous root to keep in their mouths, instructing them to slowly suck on it rather than chewing or swallowing it. Licorice root contains a natural compound called glycyrrhizin, which continuously stimulates the salivary glands to produce a steady flow of moisture in the mouth, completely eliminating the sensation of a dry throat. Furthermore, the root helps the body regulate its fluid retention and electrolyte balance, allowing soldiers to march for miles in harsh conditions with minimal water intake while remaining completely alert and free from heat exhaustion. Secret number 1, the bone broth elixir. The ultimate, number 1 secret of historic military medicine is a remedy that successfully restored thousands of critically wounded, diseased, and severely malnourished soldiers back to peak physical condition. When soldiers returned from prolonged combat or intensive surgeries, their digestive systems were often too weak to process solid rations, their immune systems were completely broken, and their muscles were severely wasted. To rebuild their strength from the inside out, military kitchens kept massive cauldrons boiling day and night to produce a dense, deeply concentrated bone broth. Cooks would simmer animal bones, marrow, joints, and connective tissues alongside wild garlic, onions, and native herbs for 24 to 36 hours continuously. This extensive brewing process completely broken down the cellular structure of the bones, releasing a massive concentration of pure collagen, glutamine, amino acids, and essential minerals directly into the liquid. This highly bioavailable broth required zero metabolic energy for a weak soldier's stomach to digest. It absorbed instantly into the bloodstream, where it rapidly repaired damaged intestinal walls, accelerated the fusing of fractured bones, and triggered a massive spike in white blood cell production, bringing dying men back to full, robust health. These are the 20 legendary, forgotten military secrets that kept human bodies as strong as iron and entirely safe from deadly infections long before the era of modern synthetic drugs. In our fast-paced, chemical-filled world today, we have completely lost touch with these profound gifts of nature. The choice is entirely yours. Do you want to continue relying solely on expensive, synthetic pharmaceuticals, or are you ready to join us in reclaiming these powerful, time-tested remedies to build a resilient, naturally healthy life? If today's video brought real value to your life, please hit that like button right now to support our historical research. Share this video with your family, friends, and loved ones so this priceless knowledge is never forgotten or wiped from history. I want to hear from you directly, so drop a comment down below and let me know which of these 20 military secrets surprised you the most. Have you ever used any of these natural methods yourself? I read and replied to your comments personally. To ensure you never miss another deep dive into the hidden health secrets of the past, subscribe to Forgotten American Health and Beauty right now and click that notification bell. Take great care of yourselves and your families, and I will see you in the next historical episode. Until then, stay strong.